March 2012. Vladimir Putin wins the Russian presidential election. One of the largest conflicts of the Arab Spring, the ongoing Syrian civil war, gains a brief reprieve as Bashar al-Assad agrees to a ceasefire. But more importantly than all that horseshit, The Hunger Games, based on the popular novel of the same name, is about to be released in theaters. Its stars, Jennifer Lawrence and Josh Hutcherson, have been propelled from those people from that one movie I saw to overnight bona fide sensations. Teenage girls all across the world who have spent the last few months reading, rereading, and pretending to read the books are now lining up for autographs, pre-ordering the movie tickets, writing Wattpad fanfiction about being stuck in islands with their favorite actors, and generally reveling in the cultural ubiquity that their favorite YA book franchise has now achieved. For a brief gilded age in the early 2010s, The Hunger Games have managed to attain the status that had previously been reserved for only the largest and most important sagas in film history: Star Wars, Harry Potter, Twilight. The books were flying off shelves, the movies were selling out and gained respectable reviews at the same time. The Hunger Games itself simultaneously a cash-in on the burgeoning young adult trend, and totally not a ripoff of a Japanese movie called Battle Royale, had in turn begun receiving the highest praise a touchstone of artistic culture can, starting copycats. Other shit-tier, soulless, generic trash flooding the shelves of already dying bookstores. D-tier movie adaptations of said shit-tier, soulless, generic trash flopping harder than a magic carp, and mildly waning box office returns on the genuine article that started it all led to a rather rapidly advancing cultural amnesia over the whole fad. But somewhere in the bowels of the internet, a seed had been planted, a seed that would soon gestate into a new genre of game, extending from its humble origins as a legally distinct fan creation into a blossoming AAA titan. I'm talking about the But first, a story. Yes, I'm using Overwatch gameplay. If you're a longtime viewer, consider this a throwback. If you're a new viewer, this is thematically resonant. You'll see why soon. For those of you who don't know, this is actually like my third YouTube channel. Actually, you may as well call it a fourth, and maybe even a fifth, because I had one when I was younger. But this is because the kind of content I was making when I started this channel that you're on now is radically different than what I'm doing now, but I digress. Back in 2013 to 2014, I had an idea. It was to bring together a group of remarkable people, 4 to be precise, 1 for each element, like from Avatar, and to assemble them under the same network, Elemental Entertainment, which we would build from the ground up doing Let's Plays. It was bad, and that's disregarding that I could only get 2 other people, so the entire premise was basically moot. I was around 14 or 15 at the time. My voice hadn't dropped to the silky smooth James Earl Jones-esque baritone it is now. I was editing in a very utilitarian fashion with little regard for flow or color correction or parametric equalizing my voice or anything like that. So I didn't have a video today, so I'm just gonna play a little Overwatch for you guys, and we'll see how this thing goes, alright? Okay, I'm sorry, I can't let this go. I know I was like 16 when I made this video, but I should have fixed this. I'm gonna fix it right now, okay? That's what I'm gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna do a low pass of 48 decibels. I'm gonna do a high pass on the same. Now, what we're gonna do next is I'm going to go into noise reduction. Okay, so play back. Okay, so I'm just gonna play a little Overwatch for you guys, and we'll see how this thing goes. I mean, it's not much better because there's not much I can do with this, but like that, it's that easy just to like fix it a little bit. But thankfully, no one back then really gave a shit, so I was free to churn this utter sewage out at will. It was the games that carried the channel, so I was always on the hunt for them. One day in May of 2014, I was ecstatic when one such game was quite literally delivered to my front door. Game Informer magazine that month ran a cover story on a new title from Epic Games, the creators of the Gears of War series, and it looked promising, a co-op, class-based PvE survival base building game with an exaggerated, stylized Saturday morning cartoon-esque aesthetic. Right up my alley, especially given I was super into the TF2 co-op mode at the time. The premise was that you and I believe 3 other friends would hunt for resources and build up a headquarters to survive an encroaching monster-infested storm. This is the most hyped I'd been for a game in a while. I thought it would be perfect for the channel. It was wild and wacky and co-op and survival, and this was near the height of Minecraft, which obviously, like I said, I was already into, so any new experiences in that vein were sure to be a hit, and more to the point, it spoke to me for whatever reason. I love the art style, I love the premise. I was an engineering focus in high school, and so the construction aspect was interesting. I had this weird thing back then for always playing the engineer in games at the time. But then, the game never came out. There was an alpha in December that I didn't get into, and then a gap. I actually thought it may have been canceled for a bit because I was hearing nothing else about it, and no one seemed to know or care what it was besides me, and I'm sure the developers. And over time, the channel imploded. I started a walkthrough channel. I started this channel as a Leafy is Here clone. I quit uploading, and I just kind of forgot about that game that a few years ago I was so excited to play, but never materialized. And then it came out, but it didn't look anything like the game that I had gotten so hyped for years earlier. See, the landscape changed a lot in the 3 years since that May 2014 Game Informer cover story and summer of 2017 when the game actually dropped. Fittingly, the game that it was initially aping, Minecraft, is also the birthplace of the new genre it would end up falling into, at least its most successful and prominent mode would. In 2012, the Battle Royale genre of game actually started within Minecraft, if you can believe it. Early that year, around the time that the Hunger Games was peaking in popularity, some geniuses railed a line of code off the spine of a Battle Royale manga and said, "Hey, what if we did this?" And thus, the survival games were born. This may sound like an odd combination, but it's actually very simple. See, if we looked at this Venn diagram I put a lot of time and energy into making, Minecraft survival games occurs here at the intersection between Minecraft being popular and Hunger Games being popular. It's the same reason that a couple years later you ended up getting a lot of Purge and One Direction fan fiction. They don't have to match or make a good combination. They just have to both be popular with the same groups of people at the same time. Look, this is the second time in this video I've mentioned Wattpad, which is too many times in any video to mention Wattpad. So as a nice little treat, if you want, there's a link in the description to read a very bad short story I wrote when I was about 14 or 15 and was also delusional enough to submit to a magazine for publication. And in retrospect, it does kind of make sense. Minecraft is almost more of a tool than a game. Adventure maps or fan-made campaigns, so to speak, had already set a precedent for extra mojonal modes of engaging with the game. So all there was to really do was create a giant cornucopia, throw down some ground rules, and hide some weapons around the map. And before long, there were dedicated Minecraft survival game servers. You log in, do some DIY matchmaking, and you're good to go. By the way, you can still play this. Oh!
Ah! I said...
Fun!
I didn't hear him.
I didn't either. I remember playing survival games a lot back in the day, but at the time it seemed more of an interesting novelty than the genesis of what would be the hot new thing for going on 5-6 years now as of the making of this video. And in fairness to 13-year-old me, once the hype of Minecraft survival games died down, apart from some smaller mods and games that were also a bit late to the party, the Battle Royale genre lay dormant for a few years. Until... after starting life as a mod for the DayZ mod for Arma 2, developed by Brendan Green, the standalone game PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds entered early access in March of 2017. I remember this vividly because I had a fever of 104 at the time. It was coincidentally the last time I was happy. PUBG differed from Minecraft survival games in several key ways. In order to make sure that the game was legally distinct from the Hunger Games, there is no singular starting location. Instead, players get to choose where they start each match by dropping from a plane whose path over the map differs each run. While a few zones have greater concentrations of higher level gear, you can find pretty much anything you need anywhere in the map. The removal of the cornucopia led to another interesting twist to the gameplay. In survival games, the players start at one location and spread out from there, but in PUBG, as a virtue of dropping from the plane, players are already spread out. This led to an issue though. If you are safe and have half decent gear where you are, why would you willingly travel anywhere? And if you don't, why would a match ever end? The solution to this was to create a circular zone that gradually shrinks in intervals as the game progresses. Staying outside of the zone does damage, so if you aren't already traveling to the next zone by the next interval of shrinkage, you're gonna have a hard time. This forces all the players into an ever smaller area of the map, thus leading to more combat, thus leading to more deaths, thus ultimately speeding up the game. Consequently, virtually every major battle royale game post PUBG would adopt this format. Drop from a flying vehicle during a strafing run over the map, gather loot, and avoid the circle. PUBG was quite literally the blueprint. Due to its sheer originality and design, PUBG was hot shit for almost a year, but by the time of its full release in December of 2017, its numbers were already shrinking, posting a loss of players for the first time in February of 2018, at least on Steam. However, just like with the Hunger Games, being innovative, at least in the public consciousness, is both a blessing and a curse. PUBG was the progenitor of a new style of game, but being so means that you don't have the benefit of hindsight and are, by default, somewhat bare bones to the people that will copy you later. It was easy for new games to copy and paste PUBG's core mechanics, but add in enough new elements to essentially render it obsolete. I mean, just look at PUBG's gameplay compared to, say, Apex Legends or even a more grounded and similar game to PUBG like Warzone, and you'll very easily see what I mean. We'll get to those two in a bit, but for now, it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, the thing that's been staring you in the face this entire time, that you've known since the opening, is not only coming, but inevitable. I'm talking, of course, about Paladins Battlegrounds was a Battle Royale style game mode for the smash hit video game Paladins. Paladins Battlegrounds was a Battle Royale style game mode for the video game Paladins, which was later exported into its own standalone game, RealmRoyale, which fared moderately better, especially for a few days in early 2018. RealmRoyale, much like the game it began life within, is a fantasy game, and it adds an interesting twist to Battle Royales, which until then had only really ranged from near future to far future in terms of settings. Between its unique take on an already intimately familiar genre, as well as the added benefit of having an established player base to jump off of with developer Hi-Rez Studios' Paladins, RealmRoyale had a strong start that unfortunately just never translated to long-term fans. This seems to be the case for a lot of games within this emergent genre. They come out, get massive through Twitch streamers playing them, and then are dropped immediately afterward. This pattern repeated for a lot of BR titles. RealmRoyale, RadicalHeights, Ubisoft's HyperScape, which had the unique marketing gimmick of having to watch Twitch streamers play the game in order to get an invite code for the beta, something that even Overwatch 2 recently did. For a while, it seemed like every few weeks there would be some new Battle Royale out whose popularity had already hit terminal velocity by the time the general public was aware it existed, and by then, no one's playing it. Several of these games have already been shut down or are currently in the process of sunsetting as we speak. RadicalHeights was shut down in just a couple of months after its release. HyperScape will probably be shut down by the time this video comes out. As someone who cares a lot about media and art preservation, the disposability of these games is incredibly concerning and sad. It's an immediate way of sifting the good from the bad, of seeing that, oh, people still play Apex Legends and PUBG and Warzone, but they aren't playing RadicalHeights anymore. But on the other hand, while I'm aware a lot of these games are just soulless cash grabs, RadicalHeights was made in just 5 months. They mean something to someone. I posted asking to talk to people in the RealmRoyale, RadicalHeights, and HyperScape subreddits and got a ton of responses. I'm going to talk more about what they said later, but it was incredibly heartwarming to see people still care enough about these games that are either in the process of or have been shut down type out many essays about them for a nobody like myself. This isn't to say there weren't exceptions to the rapidly decreasing lifespan of Battle Royale games. Apex Legends, a spin-off of the Titanfall series developed by Respawn Entertainment, launched in February of 2019 with an interesting marketing strategy. None. Yeah, no, the game just showed up one day. The only people knowing it existed being obviously Respawn, some streamers, and of course EA execs. So on February 4th, 2019, if you went on Twitch, you would see a lot of the biggest streamers in the world playing some random game you never heard of that was free to play and available right now. It worked, because within 8 hours of its release, it surpassed over 1 million unique players and garnered 70 million players within its first year. That's a surprise drop that would make Eminem jealous. I don't want to sell Apex Legends short. It's a great game and brings a lot of interesting twists to the BR formula. It's entirely first person, has a watered down but still decidedly Titanfall-esque parkour system, and also manages to fuse aspects of hero shooters like Overwatch or Rainbow Six Siege in as you play as one of the titular legends, all with unique abilities. The game deserves the level of success. Fuck me. The game deserves the level of success it's attained, and until recently, it was probably my favorite game in the genre. Call of Duty Warzone, released by Modern Warfare developer Infinity Ward in early 2010. Why do I keep fucking this up? Call of Duty Warzone, released by Modern Warfare developer Infinity Ward in early 2020 and was downloaded by over 6 million people within the first 24 hours. Since release, it's been updated to reflect whatever the current Call of Duty game is, from Modern Warfare 2019 to Black Ops Cold War to Vanguard. I don't really have much to say about it, to be honest. It's just a Call of Duty branded BR game. It's exactly what you'd expect with one major twist: the Gulag. Yes, the first time you die in Warzone, you get the chance to come back by winning a 1v1 against another dead player in the Gulag. You spawn in with a completely random loadout and have to either kill the other player or capture the flag within just a few seconds. It's a brief, tense little skirmish and adds an interesting layer to death in the game. Okay, fuck you, I'll talk about Fortnite. In case you somehow haven't figured it out by now, you know, given the title and the thumbnail of the video, the game I was talking about in the start was, in fact, Fortnite. I'm not going to go through the process of describing what Fortnite is, because Fortnite is so popular that even my mother, who I don't think has touched a video game in her life, knows what Fortnite is. As such, it's probably pretty clear why Fortnite, as it stands now, didn't exactly grab my attention in the way that the initial version of it sold to me all those years ago did. In July of 2017, Fortnite entered early access as more or less the same game it was announced and marketed as, but I ultimately decided against playing it then for a few reasons. One was that it was a $40 early access game, which in marketing lingo means give us your money and we may finish it someday. And given it took Epic 3 years to get the game out of early access, I don't think my worries were actually that unfounded. Two, I seem to be the only person I knew that cared about it, and given it was entirely a co-op game, I was basically shit out of luck. Anyway, by the time I came around to it, the game had changed a lot, much more closely resembling the Fortnite that, spoilers, I actually play now. Fortnite's cooperative mode, read the game as it was built to be played, had been de-emphasized in favor of the pathetic cash-in mode that Epic execs shook out of the interns in only a few months. Fortnite Battle Royale launched in September of 2017 and quickly became the predominant mode, with Fortnite proper being rebranded Fortnite Save the World and Fortnite Battle Royale simply being, well, Fortnite. If you want the best representation of how popular the BR mode was, I feel like you could do a lot worse than that. This would be like if the Ewok spinoff from the 80s got so popular you had to clarify when you're talking about the theatrical Star Wars movies. I'm gonna be honest, it was surreal going to Walmart and seeing Funko Pops and action figures for Fortnite, the little game that only a couple years prior I seemed to be the only one who knew or care about. But therein's kind of the thing. It wasn't the game that I wanted it to be. And I know that sounds selfish. I know that sounds shitty to look at a piece of work made by other people and be pissed off it wasn't made exactly to your specifications, but the game went from what appeared to be an inventive, quirked up base builder to just some white boy. I wasn't even sure to bust it down sexual style, and it sure wasn't goated with the sauce. The legitimate issues I had with the game, independent of my own main character syndrome, made this feel even worse. One, I hated the building. I know that the game was built off base building, and that's one reason why I wanted to play it, but in a competitive shooter, that goes against every shred of muscle memory I have. I've never once been getting shot at in a game, and my first instinct be, let me build a house. It presented a difficulty curve that was near impossible for me personally to surmount. And the fact that I was being killed and my corpse being flossed on top of by the same 9-year-olds who binge watch that blue-haired ninja fuck all day every day, I hated it. I couldn't stand it. On top of that, the game is so incredibly comically transparent in terms of the commercialization. I get that kids won't realize this or care, but with my fully developed adult brain, it's like seeing the Matrix. Every aspect of the game is fine-tuned to encourage the player to spend money and discourage them from not spending money. Let me walk you through part of what I mean. There actually isn't that much in the game that you can buy with real human cash. It's almost all done through V-Bucks. If you remember Microsoft points from the 2000s, you know what these are and how they work. You don't buy the skin, the emote, the weapon, whatever it is you want with money. You buy the V-Bucks with money, then spend the V-Bucks on what it is that you want. If you're wondering why I introduced this seemingly overly convoluted middleman into the mix, you'll figure it out when we go over the prices. And in case you can't tell I'm American by my hick-ass accent, these are all USD. 1,000 V-Bucks are $7.99, 2,800 V-Bucks are $19.99, 5,000 V-Bucks are $31.99, and 13,500 V-Bucks are $79.99. So you're probably thinking that the cost of items in V-Bucks would scale along with the prices of the V-Bucks, right? You know, that a skin would probably cost about 1,000 V-Bucks, but the battle pass with all this shit in it would cost the 13,500. No. The average skin for your character is actually about 1,800 V-Bucks. So if you want that skin, you need either two $8 cards, or for the extra $2, you can get the 2,800. But here's where it gets even more fucked, because after you buy it, you'll have 1,000 V-Bucks left, conveniently just shy of being able to buy any of the 1,200 tier V-Bucks skins, right? So then you're gonna have to spend more on V-Bucks because the cheapest option is the $8 one, and so on and so forth, and you better do it quick, asshole, because the item shop refreshes in an hour, and you don't know when or if that cool glider you want is coming back. Point is, the reason V-Bucks exist is twofold. One, because if they just charged real money for stuff, people would just buy what they wanted instead of having just a little left over, which they're hoping you use to buy either another V-Buck card to afford another bigger item that's just now conveniently out of your price range, or that you'll spend the rest on smaller stuff and then have to buy more V-Bucks. It also just looks better, right? To price all this stuff in make-believe money than be honest what you're charging people. Like $12 for a bunch of pixels? Like that looks better. And it tricks people because now they're thinking in V-Bucks and not money. Look, the game is free. I don't have a problem with them trying to keep the lights on by adding microtransactions. And to Epic's credit, the microtransactions in the game are all cosmetic. You can get the Fortnite experience without ever spending a dime. I just think that some of the tactics are a bit slimy given how young the game's demographics tend to skew. All right, that's all. I don't have a problem with microtransactions. I don't have a problem with a company making money. I hope Epic does well. I want them to be successful. I want them to make games. I like this game. I just have a problem with how transparently manipulative this particular case can be. And look, my hands aren't clean either. You can tell by the gameplay I'm not using the default skin, okay? You got me. But again, I'm a grown-ass man, and if I can get suckered into buying the redneck stoner alien, just imagine what a literal child could be suckered into. But again, I like Fortnite a lot. Like, a lot. I love it, actually. It's a fun game, and I absolutely adore some parts of it, in particular the world design and the art style. I love shit with this cartoony, goofy, quirky, exaggerated aesthetic to it. I love how everything in the desert area feels like you're just a few feet away from Route 66. I love the Pacific Northwest Twin Peaks-esque vibe of Sleepy Sound. I love how anachronistic the tech and the architecture and everything is. The game is very sci-fi, but Condo Canyon has a decidedly 80s retro wave feel, while Greasy Grove and Tilted Towers are a lot more modern. The same game that has UFOs and dimensional technology and aliens and monsters also has houses that have old style 50s, 60s TVs. It's great. It's one of a handful of games where the world is so vibrant and interesting that I've considered loading up a solo lobby and just driving around. But the only reason I got the chance to fully give this game a try was because of a minor overhaul the game recently received. Epic added a lot in the way of maneuverability. You can climb onto ledges that are just out of reach, and you can even sprint. Holy shit, how innovative. But the biggest change was that they actually disabled building. This was a temporary thing tied to an event in the game, but even now there's still a permanent zero building mode. This is, in my opinion, the best way to play Fortnite. It removes what was, again, in my opinion, an intrusive system that never quite felt at home within the rest of the game and was very clearly just there because at the time, this game was being marketed as a base building survival game. I think this speaks to Fortnite's continued success. It's been a worldwide phenomenon for years, thanks in no small part to Epic's willingness to fuck with it. The map is always in flux, there's always some new season with new items, they're willing to add stuff and remove stuff at will. The game left early access officially in 2020, but I feel like that's kind of an arbitrary designation in the first place. If you're still experimenting and fine-tuning the game's core mechanics years later, what's the real distinction between early access and not? Fortnite is a far different game than what I wanted it to be as a 15-year-old, but by giving it a chance and being willing to compartmentalize the very tangible problems I had with it, I've opened myself up to one of the most rewarding, unique, and frankly ballsy games out right now. Being on top of the world for this long isn't something we see a game do a lot. Fortnite at this point is arguably a bigger deal than even Minecraft was in its heyday. Even if you've tried it and it's not your thing, you have to give it props for longevity. It'll be really easy for Epic to play it safe, but by not, they're constantly bringing in new players, even players who previously were adamantly opposed to the game's very existence, like me. So no, I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars on V-Bucks. I'm not going to collect the Funko Pops, and I would encourage you not to either, but I am going to keep playing it. I don't know for how long. Hell, I may be bored of it by the time this video comes out, but as I've said before, video games are defined by the experiences they leave us with, and I'm glad that I was able to experience Fortnite. But this wouldn't be a Xova video without me being overly pretentious at the end, so let me talk for a moment about why Battle Royales are so popular, which means, of course, going back to the Hunger Games. We're never gonna fucking escape this shit, are we? The Hunger Games came at a really odd junction in the world. Well, particularly in America, but also the world. Anyway, The Hunger Games was published in September of 2008, only a few months after the Great Recession began in December of 2007. While Suzanne Collins, the author, says she was inspired to write the book by channel flipping between reality television and coverage of the US's invasion of Iraq. There's also a lot of emphasis in the Hunger Games on poverty and struggling to get by. This, combined with the unique premise of the government making 24 literal children fight to the death, really spoke to kids who, through no fault of their own, have been prematurely made aware of just how brutal the world can be sometimes. Don't get me wrong, the book does not, from an adult perspective, provide an accurate view of society. Poor people are basically just Amish, and the rich are all out of touch to the point of being one-dimensionally evil for the most part. There's a couple exceptions, but I mean, they watch the Hunger Games, all right? But when it comes to the actual Hunger Games themselves, the book didn't pull its punches and spoke to children as equals through a lens they could understand. Obviously, though, by the time the Hunger Games movies were being released and people were saying up Minecraft survival game servers, the recession was on its way out. Actually, by the time the Hunger Games movie came out, the first one, the recession had been over officially for about 3 years. So what gives? Well, you know how like 35-year-old people still have their fucking Harry Potter house in their Twitter profiles? Stuff doesn't just usually fade overnight, especially because, you know, kids don't like to read. The Hunger Games movie brought the story to a whole new, much wider audience, and it got people thinking, yeah, I could survive that. Also, if you'll notice, people don't really care about the world of the Hunger Games anymore. Actually don't know if they ever did, but mostly the concept of the Hunger Games themselves. The world became just an excuse for the real attraction, and an excuse that most Battle Royale video games would later forsake altogether unless you care to wade through wikis and wikis of lore. Back to the point, there's a concept in academic studies of folklore called ostension that I think can also apply here. To give what I'm sure be a very simplified definition of this, ostension is the act of performing or partaking in some part of a legend in real life. A good example of this would be going to a haunted house or going Bigfoot hunting. The Hunger Games universe is pretty ripe for ostensive play. The rules are set up really well, and as a result, the whole thing is easy to craft a game around. I mean, people did this in Minecraft. So it's one of those rare lightning in a bottle situations where people can actually live out their fantasies of existing in alternate universes through media. It's really hard to make a game where you can be a full-on Jedi. It's really hard to make a game where you can be a wizard. But it's pretty easy to throw 30 people in a ring and tell them to kill each other. It is kind of strange that with how simplistic the formula is, though, that very little has been done for these kind of games to differentiate from one another beyond minor gameplay or stylistic alterations. The responses I received from the subreddits echoed this, as well as my own taste in the games, that what drew people mostly to one game over the others was a combination of the world they're set in, as well as how fast or slow the gameplay moved. This is all perfectly valid, and it's all fairly tangential to the overall experience of playing a video game, so I wonder how much longer Battle Royales can remain stagnant. And okay, with that being said, millions of hours have been logged in Battle Royales over the last 5 years, and there are little, if any, signs of the fad slowing down. I mean, Call of Duty has been having annual releases for nearly 2 decades, and they're only just now allegedly seriously considering skipping a year. So long as Battle Royales keep a steady stream of updates, they could achieve a similar longevity. But it's clear they will have to innovate at some point. Like, seriously innovate if they want that. Or else, much like the housing one that kicked this whole thing off, at some point the Battle Royale bubble will bust. Okay, I'm gonna level with you. Part of the reason I've been skeptical of actually giving Fortnite a chance was because I kinda like to be a contrarian. It's why I hate most MCU movies, okay? I saw Fortnite as the video game equivalent of the quantum brain theory, a transient aberration in time and space that will vanish from memory with the same blasé carelessness with which it achieved consciousness in the first place. Almost every major blockbuster was and is getting a tie-in. The Weeknd had his own skin and emote. Doja Cat was getting her own emote. Drake was live streaming the game with Ninja. Marshmello was hosting virtual concerts, and I kept thinking, okay, this is it. The game's peaked. It's going to phase itself out. No sense getting into it now, but it's still here. At some point, it will be finished. At some point, Fortnite will go offline, just like all the other failed Battle Royale games I've mentioned, and all those hours and all that money will be for naught. But for right now, it's still here. It's still hanging on. It's the biggest thing in the world, and even if it shuts down tomorrow, I'm glad I decided to ride the wave. Cowabunga, dude.
We got a #1 victory royale. Yeah, Fortnite, we bout to get down. 10 kills on the board right now. Just wiped out Tomato Town. My friend has gone down. I revived him. Now we're heading southbound. Now we're in the Pleasant Park Street.